Hey everybody, welcome back to the Peebs channel. Today we're going to be doing another gaming ramble video. This one is a sort of sequel to the last gaming video where I went over the games that I'll probably never play again. I'll have that linked below and at the end of this video if you want to watch it. This is the games that I replay the most. I had a lot of people in the comments of the previous video like, this video is depressing. This video made me sad. PVG, you have such a sad life. Peebs, do you even like any video games? I mean, guys, there was a very specific list of games that I don't play anymore. I probably won't play. I mean, I had pretty good reasons for all of them. My life isn't depressing, I promise. I still play a lot of games. In fact, look at this stack of games that I do love and replay it constantly all the time. This stack is like as big as me. Okay, well, maybe it's not as big as me, but it is pretty big. My tastes in games have changed a decent amount over time, but there are still some games that I love and will always come back to at some point or another. This one, similar to the last video, is ordered sort of in like an order of the games I replay the least to games I replay the most, but it's just sort of a vague guesstimation. All of these games are games that I have replayed many times, or at least plan to replay many times. And let's go ahead and get started with the first game on my stack, Everywhere Road Trip. This one is a little bit of a stretch considering I only recently just played this. This was a game that I talked about in my Peanut Butter Gamer video that just went out, playing PS2 games for a month. But even though I've only recently played this, I have already replayed it once, so I've played it twice through. Admittedly, not all the way through. I have a bad habit of doing this, but I played all the way towards the end, and then instead of just finishing the last like 5% of the game, I just start all the way over to the beginning. So I pulled one of those with this game, but I have played it like 90% of the way through twice now, and I only just recently played it. And I foresee myself replaying it again a lot. Again, I talked about this game in my recent Peanut Butter Gamer video already, but I will mention a few things again. This game is just insanely unique. It looks like a racing game, and you do some racing, but mostly it is an RPG adventure racing game, I would say. Kind of in that order. You are a car, and you want to become the car president. Don't worry about it. It doesn't really make sense in the game either. And to do that, you have to win a whole bunch of races, but unfortunately, you suck really badly. So you have to make some money and then upgrade your parts so that you can get better, win more races, and then move on to the next area in the world and then do those races. And then eventually you kind of travel the entire world, win all those races, and you go back and do the harder versions of all those races. And the entire time you're doing that, you're making money through various different ways, and you use that money again to upgrade your parts and become a more faster, better car. More faster. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with that. I do kind of have a thing for racing games. I wouldn't call myself a racing game enthusiast, but I do enjoy driving mechanics in games a lot. Add that to the adventure aspect where you're exploring this crazy, interesting, and unique world with all these funny things going on, funny car characters that talk to you, and the progression of earning money to buy better parts to make your car faster. You can really feel the upgrades as you play. You go from barely being able to turn and going like 5 miles an hour to really having pretty good control and drift of your car and moving super fast. Anyway, I won't go on that much about it because some of you probably already watched that video, but I really love this game and I am going to be playing this a lot in the future. Next, I've got Rune Factory Frontier. In the games I'll probably never replay again, I put a Rune Factory game, and I did mention that this is one of the, if not the only Rune Factory game that I really like. At least enough to play more than once anyway. I have restarted this game a bunch of times. I put it pretty high on this stack. I guess it's not even a list, it's a stack. Because I've admittedly never gotten all that far in the game. I don't think I've ever even gotten married in the game, but I've replayed it probably 8 times. Again, this is gonna be a reoccurring theme at points during this video. I often restart games instead of just picking back where I left off. I do that to a fault for sure. Part of the reason why I've never gotten that far in this game is there's something called runes in this game. They're like these floating little colorful orb things that are floating around the world, and you know, at first you think they're just kind of like background, I guess. I never really thought much about them. But as you play further into the game, they actually are a pretty important gameplay mechanic, and I've always found it to be kind of confusing. I don't even know how to explain it as I'm speaking, but eventually you have to kind of manage the runes, or like you can only do certain things based on where the runes are. I really can't even, again, it's just confusing. So every time I get to the point where that's happening, I just am like, and I kind of stop playing, and then eventually I get the itch again and I come back and replay it. One of these days, I want to get really further into this game. This has always been a game I wanted to do a full-length Peanut Butter Gamer video on, but I just never did. But yeah, in the entire Rune Factory series, this one is by far my favorite, and I foresee myself replaying it again multiple times in my life, and maybe one of these days, I'll actually stick with it and get pretty far. Just look at the art style, too. I love the art style. And all the girls in this game are great. I always have a hard time deciding which girl I want to date. I always like Melody. The witch aesthetic is kind of cute. Rosette is kind of like, she's always kind of been an attractive option. Then I like Miss. I always like the stupid girl. I don't know, something about that. The mail carrier, Annette, is always one of my favorites. I like the creepy twins that are in the floating whale in the sky. You just have to play the game. I don't know how to explain it. Yeah, I always have a hard time deciding, though. I actually think the game has really good characters overall, which is part of the thing that's the most appealing about replaying it. Sometimes Harvest Moon games or Rune Factory games, the cast of characters in the village just aren't that interesting, and it's hard to want to play a Harvest Moon style game if the characters you're living in the world with aren't, intriguing or interesting at all. But yeah, next game. Tomodachi Life. Now, this is a game I've talked about a billion times across my multiple channels and live streams. I feel like I don't even really need to talk about it at all. It's just one of those games that I get the itch to play every few years. Even though realistically there's not that much to do if you've played through the game already once, especially if you've had a couple of your Miis get married and have a kid. That you've pretty much seen it all. I mean, maybe there's a couple cutscenes or dreams or things that happen that you might not have seen, but for the most part, you've done it all. That being said, I still just can't get enough of this game. I'm always coming back to it. It's just the exact kind of like little sandbox kind of game where you just sort of craft things and then watch them happen. It's very much like The Sims in that aspect. In some ways it's not, but in the sense where you just make a bunch of characters and then watch the goofy things happen. It's a very, very peak game like that. I feel like I'm not explaining my thought process very well. I also love how casual it is. You can just kind of carry your 3DS around and check it every now and then and see if your villagers want anything. You can literally play this game while you play another game, which is, it doesn't sound like that would be a good thing, but to me it kind of is. It's almost like a cell phone game. If they made a Tomodachi Life mobile game, and no, I'm not gonna count freaking, what was it even called again? Miitomo? I think it was called Miitomo, right? Yeah, it got deleted. They killed it because they tried to make it like some kind of social media app. If they had just made a mobile version of this game, that would have been dope, but instead they did whatever that was. But yeah, I feel like I've talked about this game to death, so Tomodachi Life, it's gotta go on here for me. Next, I've got Star Wars Rogue Leader. Rogue Squadron 2, to be specific. When I was a kid, I was really into Star Wars. I still like the original Star Wars trilogy to an extent. I even like the prequels, even though I hated them at the time. I'm kind of nostalgic for them at this point. I'm not really into Star Wars anymore, though. I just can't really get excited for it because they release like a million different Star Wars projects every year, and half the time they're not even that good or that interesting to me, so I'm just not really a fan of Star Wars anymore. But I still like the classics, and when I was a kid, I was really into Star Wars. I was specifically into the space battle scenes. I loved the space battle scenes, watching the ships just fly around and blow each other up. That was so epic to me. Empire Strikes Back. I didn't even like that movie as a kid because it didn't have like a actual space scene, battle scene. It had like some snow speeders and stuff, and that just was not the same to me. Now as an adult, I mean, that's obviously the best Star Wars movie ever made, but as a kid, I just wanted the space battle scenes, and it didn't have one, so I was kind of pissed. But yeah, I played the original Rogue Squadron for the N64, and while that was definitely a good game, it's a 3D game on the N64. You know, there are definitely some good 3D games on the N64, but for the most part, with some major exceptions, they don't age that well. In fact, one of the games I meant to put on the games I'll probably never replay again was GoldenEye 64, but when I dropped the stack of games at the beginning, it like fell over into a corner and I missed it. The sequel on the Gamecube, though, on the other hand, I think this game still looks amazing to this day. I think this one aged super well. This was even a launch title for the Gamecube. It really did feel like I was playing through the battles in the movies, and there was even some other levels as well that were exclusive to the game, I guess. Still a super fun game, and it's even kind of challenging at times, especially if you want to go for the gold medal rankings. I never did that growing up. I don't know, I wasn't that good, I guess. Lots of secrets, some really fun cheat codes and things. If you just feel like flying around and blowing things up without any challenge. What was the code? I think it's called I Give Up. Give you infinite lives. One of the few games that I've played so much that I have the cheat codes memorized. Man, boomer rant, but remember when they used to put cheat codes in games instead of putting it all as like things that you pay money for after you already purchased the game? Those were the days.
Give it up already, huh?
I don't think they even do cheat codes anymore. Maybe one of these days Fridays, I'll do my boomer hot take rants, my gaming boomer takes. Next, I have another game that was on my Peanut Butter Gamer video. I swear this wasn't a ruse to advertise the video that I just spent a long time on. This was actually a game that I replay a lot, Shadow of the Colossus. As I mentioned in that video, I now own the game on 3 different consoles. I originally played it on this PS3 version that includes Ico. Is it Ico or Eco? I think it's Ico, but I never actually knew how to pronounce that. Then later I got it on the PS4. That's a great remake, which we've talked about before in these videos. And I just bought the PS2 version, the original game, for the video since I was playing it, all the games on the actual PS2. I'm trying to think, how many times have I beaten this game? At least 3. At least once on all 3 of these. But I've replayed it a lot more times than just 3. I'll pick it up and play to like the 6th Colossus or the 3rd Colossus, or I'll make it to the 8th Colossus or something. Then I just forget to keep playing or I lose the drive. But I have beaten this game at least 3 times. Maybe even 4. I can't remember. But yeah, I mentioned in that Peanut Butter Gamer video, but just such an insanely impressive game for the PS2. The PS2 was the least powerful console of its generation with the GameCube and Xbox. But man, they really made some bangers for this system. I mean, you'd never even realize how bad PS2 was graphically if you play a game like this. Like, it's insane. You're fighting these literal giants. And the frames do drop a little bit. It's more noticeable now, especially after I played the PS4 version. But, you know, as you're playing through it, you get used to that lower frame rate, and it'll kind of drop down as, like, the wind's blowing in your face on the bird or whatever. But yeah, one of the most impressive games ever made, in my opinion. I feel like there are some games I can think of that did a whole lot with a console that was really, you wouldn't think they'd be able to. I mean, another example that I always think of is the Link's Awakening for the Game Boy. Like, that game is huge. It's massive. And when you compare it to other Game Boy games, it's like, how did they even do this? This is one of those games, for me, one of the best examples. How did they make this game on the PS2? It's insane. But yeah, it's super replayable because it's really not complicated. You find the bosses, climb around on them, you find there's the thing that you need to stab them, you stab them. I don't know, it's just super satisfying. Honestly, the only part about the game I don't like is trying to find the Colossus. It's pretty annoying trying to look for them sometimes. Even when I played the game this many times, I still get lost at some points. But yeah, super amazing game. If you haven't played it, you gotta check it out. I guess it is a sort of controversial game. I know, like, Donkey did a video and he kind of makes fun of the game.
But unfortunately, it still plays like a clunky-ass piece of crap PS2 game.
I know some people probably don't like it as much as me. I don't know. I can't imagine being the kind of disgusting person that doesn't like this game. That's a call out to Donkey. I said it. Next I've got Super Mario Galaxy. This is definitely not the only Mario game on this list, but it is one of the top ones that I replayed the most. I know a lot of people don't rate Galaxy as high as I do. I just think it is the chillest Mario game by far. I love the aesthetics. I love the whole space theme. The music in particular is super relaxing. And there's just something about replaying through this game that is so appealing. I think partially because it is easy. I think about games like Sunshine, and there's some really, you know, notoriously challenging and difficult levels. Even certain points of Mario 64 can be frustrating, or maybe it's just because I equate Mario 64 with Super Mario Chaos at this point. This game, though, it's just vibes all the way through. I think it might actually be the Mario game that I've beaten the most. Not the one that I've replayed the most, but the one that I've beaten the most. It's visually appealing, the music is insanely good, it's relaxing, it's just chill, it's an overall vibe, it's a good time, every time. Mario Galaxy. One of my favorite Mario games, for sure. Next, I have another, well, actually, no, this is not another Harvest Moon game, it is the first Harvest Moon game, Harvest Moon Animal Parade, since technically Rune Factory is not a Harvest Moon game. This is a weird game for me. I used to not like this one very much at all. It's very different from the original sort of Harvest Moon games, like the Super Nintendo one, Back to Nature, Friends of Mineral Town, the kind of games that I played when I was really small, when Harvest Moon was kind of in its early days. This was a pretty big departure from those games. Even Magical Melody for the GameCube, it was really cutesy and had these sort of chibi characters and everything, but the actual gameplay was pretty similar to the old games. This one was a lot different. You were doing like random quests and things. There was an overarching goal that really had nothing to do with farming. Now, you obviously had to farm in order to achieve the goals, but you were trying to ring all these bells that, so you could like call the gods or whatever, the harvest goddess and reviver or something, so everybody's life could stop sucking. The story makes no sense, but you know, it makes sense in the context of the game. But once I replayed it again and gave it more of a shot for my Peanut Butter Gamer video way back in the day, point, I realized just how great this game actually is. It's one of those kinds of games where the more you play it, the better it gets. And I guess admittedly, I do just have an attachment to it because of the good memories of making that video. It was always one of my favorite earlier Peanut Butter Gamer videos that I did. And I guess for all those reasons, I just love coming back to it. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the actual parade. I mean, that's why it's called Harvest Moon Animal Parade. You're trying to find these animals. It's another one of the side quests where the ringleader of the parade loses all of his animals. How does one even do that? I don't know. And he's gonna keep his job. We need some accountability around here, honestly. But it's one of the cool progression aspects of the game. Normally in Harvest Moon, you do have these sort of progression aspects where you're trying to upgrade your tools and things so you can do your farming better. This game has all of that, but it also has stuff like finding the animals. Once you find the animals, it unlocks sort of like fast travels for you. And the world in the game is very large, so having these and unlocking these fast travels is actually huge. That feeling of progression is one of my favorite things in games, and a lot of games have some sort of progression, but other games are like all about the progression. Harvest Moon is kind of all about hitting those progressive milestones and trying to, you know, spend money so you can make more money and achieve this goal so you can achieve this goal faster and like stuff like that. I really enjoy that sort of management aspect of these kinds of games. Any game where you can make money and you have things to spend it on. I love that. So it's got the addicting gameplay. It's got a cute, fun atmosphere. I've got the nostalgia for it. I'm always coming back to this game. It's such a treat. I'm wanting to play it again just talking about it. Next, I've got sort of 2-in-1 here. I have Final Fight 2 and Contra 3, The Alien Wars for the Super Nintendo. These were the two games that me and my brother replayed the most when we were young. We always were looking for games we could both play at the same time, the 2-player at a time games. I feel like I may have talked about these at some point in a different video. I think it was the games I loved growing up video. I haven't played them a whole lot recently, but even within the past 5 years, I picked these games up. Mostly I'm including these because of just how many times me and my brother played through them when we were kids. Like, I don't know, 20, 30 times maybe? I'm not even sure. And that's only counting the times that we actually got all the way through. The music in the games are really great. I'll listen to the music all the time, especially Final Fight 2. It's in my YouTube music playlist. I'm constantly going through and listening. Especially when I'm doing something like hard work, like mowing the lawn or something. I just put on that Final Fight 2 music. It's better if you hear the real thing. Just gets my blood pumping. I gotta mow all the grass. Oh my god. It's a great soundtrack. Super nostalgic for it. I'm wanting to replay all these games now. I want to like stop recording this so I can play some freaking games. Dude, speaking of good music, one of the best songs in video game history. Pilot Wings Resort, the glider theme. Holy hell, that's a good one. But yeah, another game that's great to replay just to hear the music, for sure, but I also really like the gameplay. Have a lot of nostalgia for this as well. I remember being at GameStop with JonTron back in the day when we lived together for like 6 months. We went to the 3DS launch, we got our 3DSs, and I ended up liking Pilot Wings a lot more than I was expecting. I really like Woohoo Island for one thing, so basically any game that has Woohoo Island in it, I love it. But this game in particular was great because you got to fly across and see everything in the island. I really love the free flight mode as well. That's the thing that I go back to the most these days. I've talked about that a little bit in videos before. But yeah, super nostalgic for this game. It's another game that's just a complete vibe, from the music to the graphics to the nostalgia. It's got it all when it comes to replayability for me. Next, I've got a game that I have played, oh my god, so many times. Katamari Damacy. I'm realizing a theme of these games that I replay a lot. They almost all have really good music. I feel like everybody has a certain select few games where you could replay it just to listen to the soundtrack again, if nothing else. But it doesn't hurt at all if it has addicting gameplay like Katamari Damacy does. I first discovered this game from the TV show X-Play that used to be on TV with Adam Sessler and Morgan Webb.
And its colorful explosion of bad music, rainbows, singing ducks, and what the hell is that panda doing?
Was one of the inspirations, the main inspirations for me starting even making videos about video games on the internet way back in the day. We won't talk about how long ago it was. And this is one of the games that they reviewed that just blew my mind. I knew I had to try it. It was this crazy, over-the-top, weird Japanese game. I remember they gave it a 5 out of 5.
We give it a 4 out of 5.
And I was super in the mood for this kind of weird, strange Japanese game. I'd kind of just started getting into anime as a teenager as well. So anything that was kind of unapologetically weird Japanese kind of stuff. I was very into it. But yeah, as far as replayability, it's just super addicting. I mean, the rolling up mechanic, it never gets old to me. I really love the long levels where you start out super small and you're in an area for like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes trying to get bigger. Then you leave that area, get even bigger, and then you come back like 20 minutes later and roll up the initial place you were in for 10 minutes in like 5 seconds. It's so satisfying. And the cutscenes are super trippy and funny as well. I would always be motivated to play through the next few levels so I could see another cutscene of those kids saying some weird shit. Great game, lots of nostalgia. I'll probably play it 20 more times in my life if I'm lucky enough to live long enough to do it. Next I have Grand Theft Auto 5. Now I played through Grand Theft Auto 4 a handful of times as well, but I played Grand Theft Auto 5 probably the most. I mean, this is, I think, a best-selling game of all time, so I'm assuming I'm not alone in that. This is a weird one because it's another game that I have replayed so many times just because I start over from the beginning again. I have never played the multiplayer. I know it has a pretty booming multiplayer scene. I never was interested in that. I just like to play the single player mode, and I get really invested every single time. I think, I'm gonna beat it this time. I'm gonna beat it for sure. And then I remember how freaking long these games are. It's Grand Theft Auto 4 also. These games are so long. How does anybody stick with these games long enough to beat them? It's insane. Yeah, and eventually I fall off, and then I'll get the itch in a couple years to play another Grand Theft Auto game again, and I'll pick it back up, and I was like, oh, I can't even remember what I was doing. I'll just start over, and I'll just keep doing that forever. I'll probably never beat it. One thing I specifically liked about Grand Theft Auto 5 was the 3 different playable characters. What are their names again? Trevor, Michael, and the motorcycle guy. What? I can't remember his name. I liked that they were so different as characters. I'm always torn when I play Grand Theft Auto games if I want to be like a sort of chill guy, just driving the speed limit, like, you know, not killing anyone, just playing nice, only killing people if I have to for the story missions, or just going batshit insane and murdering everybody. Like, because it's kind of immersion breaking for the storyline if you're, you know, constantly killing people all the time. It's a big thing about Red Dead Redemption that bothered me. It's like you're supposed to be this kind of like mostly good guy, but you're just murdering people everywhere.
My God.
Okay then, partner.
No! You can't shoot me. My wife is having a baby.
This game solved that problem for me. I can still kind of roleplay through as I play, because based on who I'm playing, I play differently. If I'm playing as Franklin, I mean, he's kind of a speed demon, you know, with his motorcycle or whatever, so I can still drive fast and have fun, but, you know, I don't kill anybody. Franklin doesn't just randomly kill people. But if I'm feeling violent, I can switch over to Trevor and just go insane and just be crazy. And it's still like, oh, well, that's what he would do, so it doesn't feel like I'm breaking the immersion of the roleplay of the story. And then with Michael, it's kind of somewhere in between. But yeah, super fun, super addicting. Eventually, Grand Theft Auto games do get a little boring to me after like 40 hours or whatever. You know, it's super fun, and then it just gets a little boring after 40 hours, and then I never finish. One of these days, I'll play through it from the start again, and I'll beat it, maybe. But I'll definitely play it a bunch of times again. Next, another Harvest Moon game! Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life. This is another one that I wasn't crazy about when it came out, but when I gave it more time, over time, I eventually sort of fell in love with it. Again, admittedly, after I did a video on it on my Peanut Butter Gamer channel, another one of my favorite videos. I always loved doing the Harvest Moon videos. I really, really like how different this one is to other games. Other Harvest Moon games are more about getting married, and while you do get married in this game, it's more about having a child. You get married after the first year no matter what. In fact, I'm pretty sure if you don't get married after the first year, you just lose. Yeah, there's only 3 bachelorettes. Pick one or die. Or at least have to start over. It's almost just as bad. Your son will actually grow up, and he'll be slightly different based on your choices. I don't remember exactly what it has to do with. I think based on the people that you're friends with, they might have like a different personality basically. So I really like that aspect of it. I also like the actual gameplay. The sort of farming mechanics are different in a lot of ways. Like, it's a little bit more realistic with the cattle and stuff. You actually have to get your cows pregnant in order to get them to have milk, to lactate. You can do seed breeding and other things like that. Those are the 2 things that I think make it stand out a lot from the other Harvest Moon games. And I also just like the sort of Forget-Me-Not Valley. I love the whole chill, super small town vibe. One of my top go-tos for replaying Harvest Moon games. That and Friends of Mineral Town, which for some reason I don't have on here, I don't think. So I probably should have, but oh well. I'm not gonna go get it now. Just consider this an honorary mention for Friends of Mineral Town / Back to Nature. Next, Super Mario RPG. I grabbed the Switch version, but I also have the Super Nintendo version. I honestly don't have a huge preference. I probably would prefer the original if I had to pick between the 2, but the remake was really good as well. I don't even really have any complaints about it at all. But yeah, I've talked about this one before as well in my games that I loved growing up video. Super fun RPG. I don't play a lot of RPGs, but I was was always into Mario RPG specifically. I love the humor of the game. The characters are fun. It was always really fun to, as a kid especially, to see the different Mario characters interacting in ways that weren't just the simplistic platformer like Mario saving Princess from Bowser. Like, they actually seem like real characters with real personality, and it's fun to see Mario and crew team up with Bowser to take on some insane, like, Final Fantasy-esque villain. The giant talking sword. I don't even think I could tell you how many times I've played through this game. Yeah, it's a lot though. It's a lot. And it'll be a lot more in the future, I'm sure. Next, Majora's Mask. 3DS or N64 version. I'd probably have to go with the N64 version. There's some things about the remake. We've been over this before, but there's some things about the remake that are just really bother me. Overall, the remake is excellent, just with some fatal flaws. But yeah, this was my favorite game for a very, very, very long time. It's still so close, so close. But I think it's number 2 now, or it's at least my second favorite Zelda game now. Realistically, this might be the game that I have played through the most. If I had to, like, go through, especially played through all the way and beaten. I've beaten this game more times than I could even count. Unlike most games that I replay and don't always get all the way through, I pretty much always play all the way through this game. It should have been higher, honestly. But yeah, I've talked about Majora's Mask a million times. You know what Majora's Mask is. You've heard me talk about Majora's Mask. It's dark. It's the dark Zelda game. Did you know that? Did you know that it's so dark, depressing? Yeah. Majora's Mask. That was a very generic way people would talk about Majora's Mask back in the day. I was guilty of that as well. Another game we've talked about before, Animal Crossing, the original GameCube in particular, although I've also become more fond of the Wii version, City Folk, recently. I played this game so many times, and I have erased towns. I've destroyed entire villages of people because I'm a savage person with no moral compass, simply just because I feel like restarting again. I've mentioned other games are a vibe. This is probably the vibiest of vibes when it comes to the games on this list. Another game I'll turn on just to hear the music, listen to my little villagers walk around next to me, kicking some ball or something, living their stupid, pointless lives. They exist sheerly for my amusement. And there's something amazing about starting a new town in the original Animal Crossing, especially if you compare it to the new one. Oh my god. You move in, the town's just there. You don't have to build anything, you don't have to make anyone come, it just already exists, and it grows as you live there. In fact, you can get way more villagers in this game than I think any other Animal Crossing game. So the longer you play, the more rewarding it gets and the more lively your town will get. But yeah, lots of stuff to collect. I love starting to collect the bugs over again, collect all the fish over again, starting the museum from fresh, and then working it through has always been one of my favorite things to do in these games. There's even some sense of like gambling to it, like what villagers am I gonna get when I start over? I love that. That's one of the things I'm most excited about every single time. Again, who knows what villagers you're gonna get in the new one when I guess you start with like 2 guys, but I don't know. It's just not the same anymore, man. Take me back to the classic game, please. We can keep the nice graphics in the Switch version, but I just want it to be like this again. I want to be a nobody, please. I've replayed this game so many times. In fact, I'm literally about to start a new file tonight. I actually was about to hook up the GameCube to a CRTV we have in the living room so me and my wife can start a new file. So I'm literally replaying it again today. Hey everybody, I'm back. I left. I don't think I even said goodbye. That was pretty cruel of me, honestly. It was getting a little bit late last night. I had to put my daughter to bed, and my throat was starting to get a little sore from talking too much and too loudly, as I tend to do. Sorry, by the way. But let us continue with this stack of games here. Next, I have Mass Effect. Obviously, not just Mass Effect, but Mass Effect 2, Mass Effect 3. I apparently do not own an actual physical copy of Mass Effect 3. I thought I did, but I guess I don't. The Mass Effect trilogy has been one of my favorite games for a long time. In fact, I remember I put it on my top 10 favorite games list forever ago on my Peanut Butter Gamer channel. I'm sure that list is a little dated at this point. I mean, My Summer Car should be on there, for one thing. Honestly, I'd love to redo that list at some point. Go over my favorite lists, favorite games again. Maybe I'll do it on this channel at some point. We'll see. Let me know if you want to see that. But one game I know for sure would still be on there would be the Mass Effect trilogy. I remember picking up Mass Effect on a whim, I want to say. Oh, no, I'm misremembering that. It was I'm old. It was Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic that I picked up on a whim, and then that kind of got me onto the BioWare RPG, the classic BioWare RPG, and so I pre-ordered. I remember going to a GameStop fairly far away from me to pick up Mass Effect, and it really lived up to my expectations. In particular, Mass Effect 2 was really good, and I don't even hate Mass Effect 3 as much as some people seem to. I love Mass Effect 3. In fact, Mass Effect 3 has some of the best, most epic moments in the entire series. I mean, it's kind of the would it be the climax, I guess? Is that how a climax? It's been a while since I went to school, so I'm a little dumb. That's when hits the fan. That's the correct terminology, right? When hits the fan. But yeah, out of all of the games on this list, this has gotta be, as I'm just now thinking about it, the longest game that I replayed the most, if I'm counting all 3 games. Because they're all individually very long, but obviously playing through all 3 of them, I mean, they're giant RPGs that take place in, like, the entire universe. But it still happens. Every few years, I just get that itch to replay through them again. Most recently, I played through the remade version, I forget exactly, the Mass Effect remake trilogy or whatever they called it. I played it with my wife, who had never played the games before, and she really loved it as well. And we've already started talking about maybe playing it again a little bit. Maybe we could just pick it back up. It's just like a 120-hour commitment. It's no big deal. But yeah, I gotta replay it again because there's still characters in the game I haven't married yet. I was always a Tally person. Tally Zora, who I married the first time through, and then I think I went with Liara the second time. I guess you don't get married. I'm talking like this is Harvest Moon. You just have sex. I don't know. Maybe you're a little too busy with the world being taken over by giant robotic aliens to have a wedding ceremony, maybe. But next time I play, I've been thinking about it. I might want to go for Jack.
Okay, what the fuck?
Jack, right? Like that's kind of out of left field for me. Like that would be cool. Let's go with Jack. Anyway, I'm just sort of rambling at this point. These games are some of my favorite games ever, and I'm always itching to replay them again. Man, I freaking love this game. The Simpsons Hit and Run. This is another one that I replay a lot, but I don't actually beat very often. I have beaten it once. I don't even know if I could get footage of this at this point, but in the most early days on my channel, before I really had established the kind of almost AVGN style videos that I did at that point really early on, I had this thing that I called the March Gamers Challenge.
This is a response to Peanut Butter Gamers' March Gamers Challenge,
where I challenge myself and anyone watching to pick up games that they hadn't beaten before and beat them. Just pick it up where you left off and play all the way through.
Hey guys, what's up? I'm gonna make a video response to Peanut Butter Gamer's video about his March challenge.
One of the games I did for that video was Hit and Run, Simpsons Hit and Run. I had played it so many different times, but I'd never gotten all the way through it, partially because it's a harder game than you would expect. Some of the missions, especially as you get further into the game, are pretty damn difficult. And it's also a much longer game than you'd think. But despite only beating it the one time, I'm constantly picking it back up and playing through the first, like, 3 or 4 levels. By far the best Simpsons game, although not actually the only Simpsons game. I have another Simpsons game coming up, but this is the best Simpsons game by far. I think that's a fairly non-controversial opinion. People call this game a Grand Theft Auto clone, but honestly, it's not really like Grand Theft Auto at all. You just drive around and do little missions. You can get out of your car like in a Grand Theft Auto, and you can kick people, and I guess that's crime, right? I guess you can steal people's cars too, if I'm remembering correctly, so there's barely no reason to ever do that, because the random people cars suck. You might as well just use the ones you unlock. It's really not like Grand Theft Auto at all, in my opinion, other than the fact that you're kind of in an open world, sort of, and you drive around. That's pretty much it. The driving mechanics in this game, in particular, I remember being really, really fun. Well, I shouldn't say remember. I mean, I say that like I haven't played it a million times. It is really, really fun. Easy to pick back up, too, because it's super funny, and it seems pretty, like, at first, low challenge. It's just driving around. It's easy to pick up and play. You can't really forget how to play it. And if you want to keep going further and further, again, it gets pretty challenging. Great game. I'm looking at the camera, even though it's not on. It's a great game. It's a great game. Next, I have a little game. You may have heard of it before, but I don't know. It's kind of obscure. A little series, a little game here. It's called Mario 64. This is the DS version, but also the N64 version also. I mean, realistically, this is probably the game that I have played the most hours in, especially if you count Mario Chaos Edition on the streams and videos we used to do of that game. Oh my god. Every now and then I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it in like a cold sweat. If I had to only pick one version of Super Mario 64, it would be the original, but I do still love this DS remake. I love what they did with it. Talked about this before in our remakes video, but I love that they actually added new things to it, adding the extra characters and the different stars that you can get. But realistically, the classic version with better controls is the 64 version, and it's the one I've played the most. It's always been my favorite Mario game. Again, I really love Galaxy. It's super chill, but if I can only pick one Mario game to ever exist and never have played any other Mario games, it would by far 64, beat Mario 64. Another game that's just super easy to pick up and play. I mean, you can master the controls and do crazy speed runs and stuff, or you can just kind of go through at your own pace and have a good time. It's super, super great, and it's easy to replay. Okay, next I have, oh wait, no, just one. The Legend of Zelda Skyrim. I mean, the Elder Scrolls Skyrim. This box is pretty boring, honestly. Bethesda, what is this? PC DVD. If we were going by games that I have put the most hours in, this could be at the top. Maybe topped by one other game at the bottom of this pile here. But this has got to be at least in the top 5, if not the top 3. It's just so easy to pick up Skyrim and play through and make a new character. I probably made a million new characters. Unlike other games that on this list that I have replayed a lot and only beaten once, maybe twice, if at all. I've beaten this game probably 5, 6 times, but I've played it way more times than that. I wonder how many times I've gone through the first few steps of the main dragon missions where you go up to High Hrothgar and learn the ways of the voice. I've probably done that quest line 25 times, maybe? That might be an underestimate, if anything. I'm constantly making new characters. My favorite type of character to make is, I think it's pretty basic, sort of like kind of sneaky bow guy, but also a sword. Got that one-hand sword with the torch, and then you got the bow and arrow, kind of like the Aragorn kind of character style. But I also make mages a lot, which I don't do in most other games like this. I really like playing the mage. Just the fire effects when you're like blasting people, especially if you get some mods where you add extra and new spells. I've even made necromancers before. Like, I've messed around with so many different types of classes that I don't normally play as, just because I played this game so many freaking times. And I mentioned mods. Mods obviously breathe an entire new life into this game. I mean, how old is this game? I don't even want to know. 2006? Oh wait, no. But yeah, over a decade old, almost 15 years at this point, and people still play the hell out of this game just because of all the mods and different things that are added. Always been a humongous Elder Scrolls fan. I really, really hope Elder Scrolls 6 is good. I don't really have very many high hopes. I was not a big Starfield fan. Fallout 4 was okay, I guess. I really hope it's good. I'm just kind of not getting my hopes up. I mean, who knows even when it's gonna come out. I could be dead by the time it comes out. We could all be dead by the time it comes out. Next I have the Windwaker. Out of all the Zelda games, and I probably could have realistically put most of the Zelda games on this list, but I felt like I'd just keep it down to the I think it was just the 2, right? But of all the Zelda games that I have replayed the most, it is Wind Waker by far. I get an itch to play this game all the time. I recently did a video of it on my Peanut Butter Gamer channel, like a full video of the entire game. I want to say maybe 2022 or something like that. Normally when I do a video about a game, I am not interested in playing that game again for a very long time. Just the sheer amount of hours that goes into not only recording and playing the game, but mostly writing the script, editing everything. I was kind of sick of it by that point, even if it's a game I really love. No lie, I wanted to play Wind Waker again right after I uploaded the video. Instantly after. I played through the HD remake for that game, which, oh yeah, I also have that one. And the entire time I was playing it, I kept thinking, man, I wanted to play through the original one after this. And I did actually. I think I got it on my Steam Deck right after I finished that video. I didn't go all the way through it again immediately after, but I got pretty far. And then even then, I recently played through this on this channel on live streams, on my YouTube streams. And that was like only a few months ago when we finished that. I am just replaying this game all the time. I kind of want to play it again. You know, it's just one of those games. Super special for me, and it has become slowly, very slowly over time, my all-time favorite video game. It has topped Majora's Mask for me, I think, officially when I did do that video, and again, I want to say 2022. Next, a pretty underrated game, in my opinion, I have Kirby Superstar. This is another game that me and my brother played a lot when we were young. I don't even really have that much to say about it. There was multiple different, like, sort of mini-games in this game. They have that, like, iconic ninja game, the game where you can try to punch through the entire world, but they also had some full-fledged, like, Kirby game modes. The one in particular that we liked was the treasure hunting one. You and a friend, if you want, can go along and, like, try to find all these hidden buried treasures. We always had a lot of fun trying to go through and finding all of them. I remember the first time we actually did play all the way through it and got all of the treasures. It was super, super cool. A nice bonding moment with me and my brother. Honestly, I probably shouldn't have had it this high in the list. If anything, I feel like we played Final Fight 2 and Contra 3 more often than this, so I'm not sure why I included it this high, but this was one of the games we replayed the most, and I'll still play this game to this day. One of the more underrated games on this list, I have to say. And it aged really well. I don't know if this game aged as well, but it is still one of my favorite games. The Simpsons Bart's Nightmare. This game is super replayable simply just because of the way the game works. You start out as Bart, and he's doing like a paper or something for school, trying to pull an all-nighter like the night before. Been there, done that. But he falls asleep, and then he has a dream where he's trying to find all the pages of his paper on the street. You find the pages, you jump on them, and then you go through one of the two doors and do a minigame. If you complete complete the minigame, you get one of the pages back. Long story short, eventually you either win and you get an A+, or you fail, and however many pages you collected during the dream, you get a score based on that. So it's really easy to pick up and play. I'll pick it up and play it just through one time, just to see how well I do. I'm pretty decent at the game at this point. I feel like if I picked it up and played it, I could get a good score in one try. But it is fairly cryptic, especially if you've never played it before. You are not going to realize what you're supposed to do in some of these mini games. I did eventually have to look them up when I was just determined to beat this game for my video that I did a long time ago on PVG. I haven't put as many hours into this game as other games like obviously Skyrim, Mass Effect, etc. But only because it's not a long game. It's a short game, it's a low commitment game, and I've probably played it like 50 times. Love this game. I gotta play this on stream again at some point soon, just as an excuse to play it again. See what kind of grade I can get. Next I have Resident Evil 4. I also have both the Wii version of this game, which I really like, underrated. I love using the Wiimote as the aiming system. And of course the remake that just came out, which I'm pretty sure I own digitally. All four amazing games. You really can't go wrong with them. I don't really have that much to say about Resident Evil 4 that I haven't already said. What's that, the cliche? Like the start of a top 10 segment. Number 10. What is there to say about Resident Evil 4 that hasn't already been said? And then they say some stuff after that. This was the first Resident Evil game I ever played. I was pretty young when the first like 1 through 3 came out, and I didn't have PlayStations, so. But this one came out of the GameCube. I was very excited for it, and I remember getting my dad to buy it for me since I was not allowed to buy an M-rated game, and I thought I'd have better luck with him than my mom. It worked, baby. Still one of my favorite games of all time, and it's not really short, but it always feels short to me when I play it. I just have so much fun. There's a nice mix of horror and action, a lot of really cool bosses. It just never gets old at any point. And I'm always down for a Resident Evil 4 replay. I feel like this is one of those games that if you don't really care about it that much, or maybe you've never played it and not that interested in it, you probably get sick of boomers like me talking about how great it is. So I'll go ahead and stop there. Next, we have The Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion. This has always been up there for one of my favorite games of all time. Again, another one I've talked about a lot, but I can't do a video about replaying games, or the games that I've replayed the most, without including some games that I've already talked about, obviously. As much as I love Skyrim, and it's probably a better game, arguably, than Oblivion, at least certain aspects of it are, you know, more, like the combat is more interesting than Oblivion. Oblivion's a lot of slicing, just hitting people, and nothing's really happening. There's not a lot of impact to your swings. Skyrim, while not being like an amazing first-person action game, it does feel more like real combat than Oblivion at times. But with just the right amount of imagination, Oblivion really shines. And I love role-playing and like trying to get invested in my character, and Oblivion is the perfect kind of game for that. There's also so much added content in this game with DLCs and things, and this Game of the Year edition that I have comes with all of them included. This game is so huge that even someone like me who's sunk hundreds and hundreds, possibly thousands of hours into it, I'm still pretty sure there's a lot of quests that I've never done before. I get kind of depressed thinking about the Elder Scrolls now because, I don't know, I just have very little faith in Bethesda these days. And while I'll be the first person in line to get Elder Scrolls 6, I'm just kind of wondering, is it gonna be as good as it used to be? I don't think it is. But I'm also just setting my expectations low, admittedly, so that I protect myself from being hurt. I really, again, just was not into Starfield at all. I thought it was super disappointing. Maybe Bethesda can still nail Elder Scrolls 6, though. It's more, I mean, it's a long-running franchise. It's not a new series for them. Please let it be good. Please just let it be finished. How long ago did they freaking announce that game? Like 6 years ago they announced it? Why? They only recently announced that they were working on it. Anyway, this is not a Bethesda rant. Let's move on to a game that will be perfect and is perfect forever. Luigi's Mansion, one of my favorite launch titles of all time. In fact, I might do a video about my favorite launch titles at some point. We'll see. Luigi's Mansion is perfect to replay because, one, obviously, it's super charming, super funny. I love Luigi. I love the Haunted Mansion ghost vibe, but it's also not a very long commitment. It's not a hard game to beat. You could beat this game in a day if you dedicate enough time, dedicate enough of the day to it. The other Luigi's Mansions games are not bad. I like the Switch one in particular. Didn't like the 3DS one, New Moon, quite as much. But this one still stands out to me as the best, and in particular, the reason why is, first of all, you're not going from one mansion to another like you do in New Moon. Even the hotel in the Switch version, it just doesn't feel the same because you're kind of going down the different levels and etc. The original Luigi's Mansion has that sort of Resident Evil 1 vibe where it all takes place in this big mansion that you're unlocking areas to as you go through, and you're revisiting areas and moving through it. It just like, the setting itself of the mansion is almost like a character in and of itself. And you really grow attached to the mansion as opposed to, like, you know, in New Moon, especially when you're moving from mansion to mansion, who cares? You're never going back there again. It doesn't matter. I'm always excited to re-explore through the mansion in this game. But also, probably more importantly, the boss ghosts in this game are their own characters. It drives me crazy. Obviously, there's some generic ghost enemies that are like faceless faceless and they all look the same, but the actual main ghosts, they're real characters, and that really bothers me in the newer games that they don't have that, at least nowhere near to the extent that this game did. Like, the boss characters are the actual people who lived in the mansion before. The ghosts of the people who previously lived there. Like, that's so cool. I don't know why they went away from that. The graphics in this game are absolutely timeless. They still look gorgeous to me to this day. The music is great. And again, I'm just a humongous Luigi's fan. I'm a humongous Luigi fan. My voice is really going hoarse right now. And again, like half the games we were talking about, I want to play this game now just because I've been talking about it again. It's one of those games you can pick up like every October around Halloween and play through. Again, super small commitment, so it's easy to replay. But yeah, that'll pretty much do it. This might be one of the longest gaming ramble videos we've done so far. At least close to it. If you want to see one of the other ones we did, why not check out the games that I loved the most as a kid, or obviously the prequel to this video, the games I will probably never play again. If you enjoyed this kind of video, hit the like button, let me know in the comments what games that you replay the most, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.